The Maamar Havaya بعוזרי, the Rabbi said Yud Beis Tammuz Tavshin Yud Zayin. It's based on a Maamar that the Baal HaGeula, the Frierdiker Rebbe, said in Tafresh Pei Zayin when the Geula took place. Havaya بعוזרי Vani B'Seinai, David HaMelech sings, we say in Hallel, that Hashem is amongst those who help me, and I will see the downfall of my enemies. The Maamar asks two questions right in the beginning of the Maamar. First of all, how could Hashem be considered amongst those who helped me? Who are the others that help, that are even more important, more prominent than Hashem, than Havaya? And secondly, why does David HaMelech say that I will see the downfall of my enemies, rather than saying, davening, that his enemies should do tshuva? The answer to these questions we don't get to until the very end of the Maamar. In order to begin the answer, we start a discussion on a different pasuk in Tehillim from David HaMelech, discussed in the Maamar of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Zmiris hayi li chukacha bebeis megurei. That David HaMelech says that chukacha, the mitzvahs, studying Torah, were zmiris, were a pleasure for him, a tainug, a sense of calm, bebeis megurei, when he was running away from his enemies and they were causing him fear. The Maamar asks two questions initially on this pasuk, Zmiris hayi l'chukacha bebeis megurei. The first question is, when David HaMelech wants to say that the mitzvahs caused him a sense of calm, why does he compare it to specifically the pleasure of song more so than any other pleasure? Why Zmiris? And the second question is, why Chukacha specifically? When David HaMelech wants to say that the Torah, the mitzvahs, bring him a tainug, a pleasure, why is it specifically the Chukacha, that category of mitzvahs, more so than any other part of mitzvahs that bring David HaMelech this zmiris, this pleasure? In order to answer the question, we first explain that the reason why zmiris are specifically chosen is because zmiris have additional meanings as well as discussed in the Maamar. The word zmiris also means singing praise, that David HaMelech was expressing the praise of Torah. That afilu diktuk kal, the slightest nuance in Torah, is something that the chayus, the life of the entire world, is dependent upon. That the whole world is batal to the slightest nuance in Torah. And the Maamar also brings down that the word zmiris comes from the language of lizamer aritzim, cutting down negativity, klipa. And David HaMelech was expressing that the Torah brought him calm in his running away from his enemies, in his time of fear and difficulty, because he was able to reflect how the Torah is more important than everything else in the world, and the whole world is insignificant compared to Torah. And with this appreciation, with this understanding, not only did David HaMelech manage to achieve calm, but David HaMelech even achieved that anything inside of the world that is not in accordance to Torah, that doesn't line up with Torah, was destroyed, lezamer aritzim, that all of the negativity, all of the klipa, all of the things that were oppressing David HaMelech were taken away. So that explains why David HaMelech specifically chose the term zmiris, because of the deeper meanings that there are in the word zmiris. As far as why chukacha is chosen specifically, that's because to accomplish this sense of calm that comes from recognizing that the whole world is batal compared to the slightest nuance of Torah, and through this to get rid of anything inside of the world that is not aligned with Torah, is something that's achieved specifically from the level of chukacha, as we're going to explain. In order to explain that, the Maamar splits first mitzvahs into two categories. There's the category of mitzvahs that are relatable to logic, and the category of mitzvahs that are completely beyond logic. Mishpatim and edes, the mitzvahs that make sense, and the mitzvahs that, when given the proper context, can be appreciated. Those two types of mitzvahs are mitzvahs that logic has a connection to. And then there's the mitzvahs which are completely beyond logic, completely outside of any ability to grasp whatsoever. Those mitzvahs are mitzvahs which are like chukim that are completely outside of the world. The mitzvahs which are graspable inside of logic, they are what create the world in all of its, the Ramach Pikudin in the Ramach Ivrin de Malka, in all of its presentation and each detail of the world. Through the mitzvahs, that's where the world comes about. But then there's the Ratzon, the will of Hashem itself. That the reason why we do something which is a chayk is because that's what Hashem wants us to do. And that's something which is the essence of Hashem, which is higher than having any specific connection to anything that can be grasped or appreciated inside of the world. The Maamar continues, and the Maamar says that this is why the two ideas of chukim and mishpatim are two general ideas that exist inside of every single mitzvah, because every single mitzvah that we do, we have to approach, on the one hand, with recognizing that this mitzvah has a specific accomplishment inside of the world. And through the performance of this mitzvah, you're going to have a positive effect. But at the same time, there's also a kavanah in the performance of any mitzvah, and that's complete Kabbalah's O. That you are doing the mitzvah, you're performing the mitzvah just because that's what the Eibishter commanded to do, and there isn't any logic or any understanding or any appreciation that there can be connected to this mitzvah whatsoever. Based on that, we could understand why, when David HaMelech wanted to bring out the zmiras which Torah and mitzvahs caused for him, bebeis megurei, he emphasized specifically chukacha, because chukacha is something that is there only because that's what Hashem wants. And that aspect of Torah is where David HaMelech is able to say that on this level, the Torah is completely distracting him, pulling him away from all of the challenges that he's having inside of the world, and it's able to bring him a sense of calm that what's going on in the world doesn't matter because he has something which is completely beyond the world. If you're going to have, for example, the mitzvah of tefillin, that the mitzvah of tefillin have various accomplishments, and David HaMelech will be focusing on those accomplishments, then the distractions and the difficulties, the challenges which he's facing inside of the world are going to cause him a pain, a suffering, if only because as a result of it, he may not be able to perform the mitzvah of tefillin the way that he wants to. But when connecting to the mitzvah on a level which is chukacha, which is completely outside of the world, that's able to bring David HaMelech this sense of recognition that the whole world doesn't matter, Because what's important is only that this is what the Eibishter wants. And since what's important is only that this is what the Eibishter wants, therefore it brings David HaMelech a sense of calm and even accomplishes that those negativities are able to be gotten rid of. Understanding this on a deeper level, in order to understand it, the Maamar introduces a third category inside of mitzvahs, which earlier we split the mitzvahs just into mishpatim and edus and chukim, but now we're going to focus on the category of edus themselves. The word edus means a testimony, and the idea of a testimony, of saying an edus, is not on something that you see in front of you, because something that you see in front of you doesn't require edus. And it's not even on a milsa da avida de legluye. It's not even on something which eventually will become clear, because something which eventually will become clear also does not require edus. So the idea of edus is on something which is completely concealed, completely hidden. There's no way for the people to whom the testimony is being given to recognize that which the testimony is being said about without the means of edus. With regard to mitzvahs, the same thing is true. Mitzvahs bring godliness into the world and fill the world with godliness. There's different levels of godliness inside of the world. There's the level of mishpatim. The mishpatim are the logical mitzvahs, which is like the things which are clear. You look at the world around you, and you see the Or HaMimale, you see the energy of godliness, which is filling it and allowing it to be there. You're able to recognize mibsari echze aleika. You're able to see godliness in the world around you. That's the Or HaMimale, that's like the mishpatim. Then there's an additional level of godliness which fills the world, which is seviv. Seviv is not something you're able to see. It's not clear in front of you. It's something which it's not able to be recognized inside of the kelim, inside of the vessels of the world. But a thinking person, through using logic, is able to appreciate that his logic is not the end-all be-all. That there's something outside of his logic. There's something which he doesn't understand. The shlila, the opposite of that which he's able to encounter and see. That, the shlila, that's what the higher recognition, it's like a milsa da avida legluye, that from what you see in front of you, you're able to recognize that there's something greater than that which is in front of you. But that too is not what the edus of mitzvahs are about. The edus is about a godliness which is so outside of the world that it can't even be recognized in a way of opposite, in a way of contrasting it to the world that you see in front of you. That's the etzem, the essence of Eibishter. That's completely outside of the world. So edus, the mitzvahs which are called edus, they're mamshich and megala, they draw down and reveal the essence of godliness inside of the world. And this is something which applies to all mitzvahs. That when we perform mitzvahs, through the performance of any mitzvah that we do, the performance of that mitzvah, it brings out inside of the world, not just the memali, not just the seviv, but atzmus or itseif, the essence of the Eibishter. First of all, though, we have to understand, if that's the case, so what's the difference between edus and chukim? Chukim is That's what we do because that's what Hashem wants. And Eidus is also something which is mamshech umegala. It draws down and reveals the atzmus of the Eibishter inside of the world. And second of all, what's the relationship between those mitzvahs that are in the category of Eidus, the mitzvahs which in the proper context we're able to appreciate, and the mitzvahs which, and this idea of being mamshech umegala, the atzmus, the essence of the Eibishter. So the Maamar explains this. Through explaining that the Aveda, just like we said earlier, the Aveda of Mishpatim is the Aveda of understanding and appreciating the accomplishment of each mitzvah. And the Aveda of Chukim is the Kabbalas Ol which there is inside of mitzvah. What's the Aveda of Eidus? The Aveda of Eidus is the Reusa de Liba that there is inside of each mitzvah. In every single mitzvah that you do, there's a certain Reusa de Liba, a feeling that you have that you're doing the Eibishter's mitzvahs. The reason why you have that feeling is because of the relationship that there exists between the essence of a Yid and the essence of the Eibishter, and that's the Eidus, that the performance of every single mitzvah is bringing out the essence of Eibishter, which is completely higher than the world, because it's connecting to that Reusa de Liba that exists inside of every single Yid. And that's why a Yid is so ready to perform a mitzvah. Because there's that Reusa de Liba, which the mitzvah is able to connect to tickle, to bring out. And when that Reusa de Liba is aroused, then a Yid wants to do mitzvahs. So the performance of a mitzvah itself is an eidus, is a testimony to the essence of the Eibishter, because that's what this mitzvah is. And that's the category of eidus, which the category of Eidus is a mitzvah which in context is able to be appreciated. Why? Because in the context you're able to appreciate that Pesach is commemorating something unique and personal and intimate between Hashem and the Yidden. Something essential, an essential bond that exists between the Eibishter and the Yidden, and that's an essence which is emphasized in every single mitzvah that we do on some level. But that Reusa de Liba is focusing on me, on what I feel. And even if what I'm feeling is that I want that the Eibishter should be revealed here inside of the world, ultimately, it's something which is connected to me. And if it's something which is connected to me, to my mitzvahs, to my existence, then it's not the essence that exists by Chukim. By Chukim, there's just Kabbalah Soul. There's just Eibishter. There's no me involved. There's just the essence of the Eibishter. And this is the difference between the mitzvahs of Eidus and Chukim. That the mitzvahs of Eidus are in order to be mamshech umegala atzmus. But it's in order to do something. And even though that's all about the Eibishter, all about revealing the essence of the Eibishter, but it's for a purpose. As opposed to the mitzvahs of Chukim, or when we perform a mitzvah on this level of Chukim, when we're performing a mitzvah on the level of Chukim, then this is only Eibishter. It's not for anything else. It's just a chayk, it's just the Ratzon Hashem. It's just what Hashem wants, which is completely higher than anything that's about me. It has nothing to do with me at all. According to this, we could go back to what we said earlier. We said earlier that it's specifically the mitzvahs of Chukim that brought David HaMelech this tainug, this pleasure, this calm in his time of difficulty, because he was able to reflect how the whole world is insignificant compared to Torah. That's only possible from the level of chukim, because it's only on the level of chukim that the whole world is really completely insignificant. On the level of Eidos, the world isn't completely insignificant. The whole point of Eidos is to be mamshech umegala in the world. To be mamshech umegala in me, the Re'usa Deliba that I'm feeling. So the world isn't completely insignificant. So it's not able to achieve that level of Zmiris. That's only able to be achieved properly from Chukecha, where nothing else matters and nothing else exists, and all that's important is just the Ratzon of Hashem himself. But David HaMelech was punished, as it says in the Gemara, for saying Zmiris Chukecha. The reason why David HaMelech was punished for saying Zmiris Chukecha is because studying Torah that is done in a way of lezamer aritzim, in a way of uprooting the world, is not the objective. The whole point of Torah and mitzvahs is l'shavas yitzara, that the Torah and mitzvahs should be inside of the world, like the difference between Torah and tefillah, that Torah comes down milmayla lamata, from above to below, and it pushes away anything that doesn't align to it. But tefillah is working from below to above in the refinement and in the perfection and in the purifying of the world below, in order that the world should be a place where the Eibishter can dwell. And that's the ultimate objective. The ultimate objective is to draw down that level of Hashem's Ratzin in and of itself, the level of Chukecha inside of the world, that it should be revealed in the world, that it should be that the world itself should be a keli, that there should be able to be that Torah inside of it without destroying it, without uprooting it. What does it mean, the Maamar asks, that David HaMelech was studying Torah in a way of Zmiris, of Lezamer Aritzim? If we said that the David HaMelech was studying Torah in a way of the Ratzon HaAtzmi, the essential Ratzon of the Eibishter, so how is it possible that that shouldn't be ultimately the Amitis HaKavana, the true Kavan of the Eibishter? So in order to explain this, the Maamar goes into a discussion of the idea of Havaya Echad. We say in Shema, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, not Hashem Yachid. Seemingly, the more appropriate language to use should have been that the Eibishter is Yachid, the Eibishter is only, not that the Eibishter is one. And the idea is that the true unity, the true Achdus Hashem, is something which is emphasized specifically when there is Havaya Echad, when it's drawn down into the world, when it's not an Achdus, a unity of the Eibishter, that only the Eibishter exists and the world doesn't exist, but that the world exists, and within the existence of the world, you're able to appreciate the unity of the Eibishter. In order to explain this, the Maamar explains that the word Echad itself is a word which is made up of an Aleph, a Ches, and a Dalet. The Ches represents the Zayim Rekim V'Aretz, the seven heavens and the earth. The Dalet represents the four directions. And the idea of Echad is that you're being mamshech from the Aleph, from the Yechidei Shel Olam, the Maamar calls it, the only one of the world, the Yachid, and you're drawing down from this Yachid, and you're drawing it into the world, the Zayin Rekim Ba'aretz, into the dimensions of the world, the four directions. That means that even the way that the world exists, and not just the way that the world exists from the level of Havaya, which is a closeness to the Eibishter, but even the way that the world exists from a level of Elikim, which is a concealment of the Eibishter, even over there you're able to say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. How is that possible? This is drawing down from the level of Yachid, that the level of Yachid should be inside of the Echad. In other words, Echad itself is lower than Yachid, because Echad is a oneness, which means that the Eibishter is one, but I'm here too. Yachid is that there's only Eibishter. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad is saying that this level of Yachid, where Hashem is the only existence, is even inside of the Echad, even inside of the world. How is such a thing possible? It's only possible if you're drawing down from a level which is even higher than Yachid. And that is the essence of the Eibishter, that is Koilo, Echad, and Yachid together. So in order to explain this, the Maamar brings out that the word Havaya itself has three indications. There's the idea of Havaya Milashon Mahava, that Hashem gives existence to the world, which is similar to the level of Memale, that Hashem is is connected to the world. It's the relationship that the Eibishter has inside of the world, which is the lower level of Echad. The Echad which is inside of the world, that the world exists, and Hashem is the life energy of that world which exists. Then there's a higher level of Havaya, which is Haya, Hayva, V'yiyah. That means that Hashem is beyond the dimension of time. Hashem is beyond the dimension of place, beyond the dimension of the world. That's like Echad from the concept of Yachid, that the Achdus of Hashem, which is higher than the world. Then there's a third aspect in the name Havaya, which is that Havaya is the Shem Ha'etzem of the Eibishter. It's the essential name of Hashem. And this aspect, that the Shem Havaya is the essential name of Hashem, is something which is beyond any specific connection to anything having to do with the world. The term Havaya, Milashon Mahava, obviously has to do with the world, because that is the godliness which is giving life to the world. Even that which Hashem is higher than the world is still like the level of Seviv, which is the Shlila, the opposite of the world. But the Shem Ha'etzem means that it's just the essence of the Eibishter, which is completely higher than the world. In order that Yachid should come down into Echad, that's from drawing from the level of Shem Ha'etzem. That means that when Yachid comes into Echad, then you have a Gilui, a revelation of something which is even higher than Yachid. Because the only way Yachid could come down into Echad is through the Shem Ha'etzem, which is higher than Yachid. So when Yachid comes down into Echad, you have a Gilui of the Shem Ha'etzem, which is higher than everything. Based on this, the Rabbi explains the statement in the opening of Yad HaChazak al Rambam, which is also mentioned in the Maamar of the Fidik Rebbe, that Yisayid HaYisayidis, V'amud HaChachmis, the essence of everything, the foundation and the pillar of all knowledge, is Leida, to know Sheyasha Matzi Rishon Shehu V'hu Mamsi Kol Nimtza, that there is an original existence which brings everything else into existence. That's like the level of Havaya Milashon Mehave, that he gives existence into the world. Everything that exists from the is, first of all, Leida Sheyesha Matzi Rishon. Matzi Rishon is the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei Haya Hayva V'yiyah, which is higher than the world, which is Matzi Rishon, exists without the world, which is outside of the world. Mamsi Kol Nimtza gives existence to everything that exists, like we said, is the Mahava, which is the existence of all of the world. And then everything that exists in the entire world, from the heavens to the earth and everything in between, Leinimtzu Ela Me'amita Simatzei. Me'amita Simatzei, that's the Shem Ha'etzem, the essence of the Eibishter. And that's why the words Yisaydes V'amud HaChachmas is Rosh Tevis Havaya, because in the mitzvah of knowing Eibishter, there's these three levels that exist inside of Havaya. And this is something which is hinted in the words Yisaydes V'amud HaChachmas themselves, because the Yisayid, a foundation, is something which is beyond logic, it's beyond reason, it's a foundation of reason. It's not something that can be explained, it's not something that can be argued. And chachma, wisdom, is something which is logical, which is explained. How do you have Yisaydes V'amud HaChachmas brought together? That's only possible with Havaya Shem HaEtzem, which is revealed through this combination, as we mentioned. So according to this, when David HaMelech said, Zmir Se'iluchukaka, he was saying that the Torah, the way that it is from the essential ratzon of the Eibishter, which is completely l'mayla mitam, beyond logic, that's the level of chukacha, the level of yisaydes, something which is not logical, is similar to, which is the level of Havaya, which is Hayahayvaviyah, which is beyond the world. But that's something which comes down into the world. In other words, that the beer that comes from this level, the beer that comes naturally from this level is a beer which is an eifin of a dechia, of pushing away. That means that it's pushing away the world, but which is the zmires from the language of lezamer aritzim, of cutting away anything that which is negative. But since the proper level of achdus Hashem is that this should be mitzad ha'olamos, therefore it has to be something which is inside of edus and mishpatim, inside of the logic of Torah as well. It shouldn't be something which is exclusive to chukacha. It should be something which causes that inside of the world you're able to appreciate the yechida shel olam, which is completely higher than the world, and through this you're able to connect to the essence of Torah, which is higher than chukim, the Shem HaEtzem. Now, at this point, the Maamar goes back to the original question. The question in the beginning of the Maamar was, why does it say Havaya Ba'ozri? What is Ozri? What is that which helps a person? What helps a person is the nitzaitzis, which he refines through his Avodah inside of the world. When a Yid does his Avodah in the world, and he refines all of the sparks in the world, this is what stands by his stead. This is what helps him accomplish everything that he needs to accomplish. So the explanation of Havaya li ba'ozri is that it's not enough that I have the sparks which I refine through my avodah in the world, but Havaya li ba'ozri, that I'm drawing down the level of Havaya, of Eibishter, which is higher than the world, inside of the world. And the combination of these two things together, of the Havaya, which is higher than the world, inside of the nitzaitzis, which are coming from the world, the refinement which is coming from the world, is only possible from Havaya, which is Shem HaEtzem, which is higher than the level of Havaya, the essential level of Shem HaEtzem, the essence of the Eibishter. And this is what it means, Vani B'Sainai, that David HaMelech is saying that through Havaya li ba'ozri, through drawing down from the level of Hayah into the level of Havaya Milashon Mehava, which is accomplished only because of Shem HaEtzem, that is what allows that even when I look B'Sainai, when I look at my enemies, what am I able to see inside of my enemies? I'm able to see only Eibishter, only godliness, and no negativity, which is the transformation of the enemies themselves through the refining of the sparks inside of them, that they too should be seen only as godliness. And this is something which occurred also by the Frierdiker Rebbe, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was freed. And in that freedom of the Frierdiker Rebbe, even the enemies of the Frierdiker Rebbe were transformed into helpers, because it was the drawing down of the L'mayla min HaTeva, inside of Teva, which through that brought out the Atzmus, the essence of the Eibishter, which prepared the world, that the world should be a dira le'yisparach leila Atzmusa with a gula mitzvah vashlema to Mashiach tzidkenu b'karv mamish. Just to finish quickly with a story, the Rabbi told this story several times by Fabrengens of the Tzemach Tzedek, that one time the Tzemach Tzedek was accepting Yechidus till very late at night, and the Rebbe Marash wouldn't go to sleep before spending some time with the Tzemach Tzedek. So on this occasion, the Rebbe Marash waited up till very late until the Tzemach Tzedek had finished Yechidus. And when the Rebbe Marash went in to the Tzemach Tzedek, so the Tzemach Tzedek complained to the Rebbe Marash, so to speak, and said, "What do these people want from me? All this time I'm spending, it's so late now at night, I could have been spending all of this time learning Torah." And the Rebbe Marash didn't want to contradict his father, but he went over to the Sfarim and the shelf and started to count the Sfarim which the Tzemach Tzedek himself had written. And it's the Rebbe Marash counted more than 30 Sfarim in Chassidus, which were written by the Tzemach Tzedek. And he turned to his father and he said, "Tati, if not for accepting people into Yechidus, would you have been able to write all of these Sfarim in Chassidus?" And the Tzemach Tzedek said, "You're right, I would not have been able to." And the Rebbe explained that the Tzemach Tzedek wasn't complaining chas v'shalom that he didn't want to help these Chassidim. What the Tzemach Tzedek was saying was that he wanted to help them through writing, through learning Torah, through being involved in Torah, through an even higher level than speaking to them and getting involved, through Lizamer Aritzim, through uprooting all of the negativity through Torah, instead of being involved in the discussions which are on a much lower level. But the Rebbe Marash responded to the Tzemach Tzedek and calmed the Tzemach Tzedek. What brought the Tzemach Tzedek this consolation was that it's specifically through being involved in accepting the people in Yechidus that he was able to write all of these Svarim in Chassidus, which is the revelation of the Etzem, the essence of the Eibishter, which is higher even than the Torah which he could have studied had he not been accepting these people in Yechidus.